Hello everyone. In this topic, we'll discuss about tools for managing Azure Cloud. There are multiple tools which are available for us to deploy the resources onto the Azure Cloud. We will be able to use the portal itself, and there is also a CLI tool which is called as Azure PowerShell. So basically, this is a Windows-based PowerShell, and we need to install the modules for the Azure. If I wanted to run any of the Azure commands, then I have to install the modules for the Azure. And also we have Azure command line interface, which is also called Azure CLI. So basically we'll be able to use all these management tools. Apart from these, we also have SDKs, and also we can integrate with the APIs as well. So if I wanted to create any of the resource onto the Azure cloud, we will be able to use all these tools. So let us look into the portal. So what is Azure Portal? Azure Portal is a GUI based tool. We will be able to build, manage, and monitor everything from simple web apps to complex deployments. We'll be able to create custom dashboards for an organized view of resources. We'll be able to configure accessibility options for an optimal experience. The Azure portal is designed for resiliency, and also it has high availability. This portal is available in every Azure data centers. Even if there is any data center failures or any issues related to data center, this portal will be always available. And whenever a user tries to connect to the Azure portal, since this portal is available in all the Azure data center, for the user, he will be connecting from his nearest locations to avoid network slowdowns. The portal gets updates continuously, and there is no downtime required for maintenance activities. So let us see what is Azure Cloud Shell. Azure Cloud Shell is a browser-based shell. So you will be able to access the Cloud Shell from the portal itself. So when you log into the Azure portal, there is an option for you to access the Cloud Shell. You will be able to use either PowerShell or the Azure CLI. So this is the portal, and this is the Cloud Shell from where you will be able to access the PowerShell and Azure CLI. Even if you use PowerShell or Azure CLI, these two commands will go via the REST API, and it will go via the ARM. So this is nothing but Azure Resource Manager. Whatever commands you are going to issue via the PowerShell or Azure CLI, everything will be converted and sent via the REST API protocol. Then it will be sent to the ARM. ARM is the one which is going to deploy your resources. So ARM will deploy the resources based on the commands what you have issued using the PowerShell and Azure CLI. Let us see what are the features of the Azure Cloud Shell. Since this is a browser based, you will be able to directly access the Cloud Shell tool from the portal itself. There is no local installation which is required. And since you have already authenticated to the portal, there is no additional authentication is required. Either you choose the PowerShell or the Azure CLI based on your experience. So this is for if you are a Windows background user, then you can use the PowerShell, or if you are coming from Linux background, then you will be able to use Azure CLI tool. Let us see what is Azure PowerShell. If we are running the Windows operating system, like we have the server and we have Windows operating system, we know that the PowerShell comes built in as a default package or tool, command line utility tool. And the regular command, what we are going to use, like ping, cd, dir, these are the commands which are inbuilt for the Windows operating system. If I wanted to run any of the commands related to the Azure, then I have to install something called as, I need to install the modules. So this module is nothing but the Azure module. So this module contains the commandlets. So commandlets is nothing but set of commands which are then grouped as modules. So once you install the Azure module onto the PowerShell, then you will be able to run all the commands which are required for you to deploy any of the resources onto the Azure cloud. Whenever you are using the Azure PowerShell, it is calling the REST API to perform management tasks onto the Azure cloud. You will be able to delete, create, and update the resources on the Azure cloud, and also you will be able to deploy the entire infrastructure using the PowerShell scripts. So you can create PowerShell scripts, or you'll be able to run single commands, and you'll be able to deploy the entire infrastructure. Basically, that is going to take time. So what you can do is you can combine all your commands and create a script and deploy the entire infrastructure using the script PowerShell scripts. If you have already created the scripts and deployed the resources on the Azure cloud, then you will be able to use the same process to create the resources. Say, for example, if you have created the scripts for the development environment, and if you wanted to repeat the same resources for production environment, you can use the same script and repeat the process of creating the infrastructure. Since PowerShell is a cross-platform utility, you will be able to install on Windows, Linux, and Mac platforms as well. So let us see what is Azure CLI. Azure CLI is similar to PowerShell, but the syntax of the commands will be different. While using Azure PowerShell, we use the PowerShell commands. When we use Azure CLI, we use the bash commands. So that is why I said, if you are familiar with Windows operating system, for the Windows user, they will be able to use PowerShell. And for the Linux user, since they are very familiar with the bash commands, they will be able to run the Azure CLI commands. I have already logged into the Azure portal. If I wanted to access the Cloud Shell utility tool, then I have to come here. So this is where I'll get the Cloud Shell. And I'll be able to use either PowerShell or I'll be able to use the Azure CLI utility tool. So this is the PowerShell command line tool, which it is going to connect. Let us see how much time it is going to take to get the prompt. If I enter, then so it is taking some time. Let us wait. Or if I wanted to switch to bash, which is Azure CLI tool, I'll be able to switch to bash. Let us wait for some time. Yeah, we have the prompt. Yeah, we have the prompt. If I wanted to run any of the command, if I wanted to check how many resource groups are available in my subscription, I can use the command. If you notice, the command is automatically populating. All I need to do is just use the right arrow key on my keyboard. It will automatically complete the syntax of the command. See, it has automatically completed the syntax of the command. Now I need to just enter. Since I have not created any of the virtual machines, so this resource group is just empty. There is no resources apart from the resource group. Let us switch back to the Azure CLI utility. And here, if I run the CLI commands, Azure CLI commands, it will start with AZ. Then if I wanted to list the virtual machines which has been created, AZ VM list. So there is no virtual machines. If I say AZ group list, I will say give me in table. So this is the resource group which is available in this subscription, and there is no virtual machines. I have already installed the command line utility tool, which is the Azure PowerShell module on my laptop, and also I have installed the Azure CLI utility tool on my laptop. If I wanted to use the tools from my laptop, I can actually use the, let us say if I wanted to use the Azure CLI tool, I'll be I'll check the version. So this is the Azure CLI utility tool, which I have already installed on my laptop. If I wanted to check the PowerShell version, it is automatically populating the command. All I need to do is enter use the right arrow key on my keyboard. It will automatically complete, and it will tell what is the version of the PowerShell which has been installed on the laptop. If I use if I use AZ-VM list, I need to first log in because I have not logged into the portal. I have only logged into the portal. I have not used Azure CLI to log in. I need to use this particular command, AZ login. It will open the browser. Then it is saying login is successful. So I'll go back to the Visual Studio Code, and if I wanted to run the command which we have run on the Cloud Shell, I'll run the same command, AZ-VM list. There is no virtual machines. AZ group list. Okay, I wanted to see in table format. So once I have logged into the Azure, I'll be able to use, or I'll be able to run all the commands which we have ran on the Cloud Shell. Instead of AZ login, if I am using the Azure PowerShell, then I have to use this command to connect to the Azure account. And let us say if I am creating a new resource group, since demo RG001 is already created, I will create another resource group and I will enter. So I have logged in using the Azure CLI tool, but you have not logged in using the Azure PowerShell command. So what I will do is I will connect to Azure account. Okay, I have misspelled connect. Okay, yeah, authentication is completed because I have logged in. I have already logged in, so that is why it is saying authentication is already completed. Now, if I wanted to run this command to create the resource group, yeah, it has already created the resource group. Get AZ resource. See, you will be able to list the resource group which we have created. So this is the new resource group what we have created. So this was an overview about the Cloud Shell utility tool, PowerShell, and also the Azure CLI.